Okay, so today we discuss the hemorrhage. Hemorrhage means the loss of blood. Huh? Loss or escape of blood from the circulatory system. You know, with our body has a circulatory system. We includes the arteries, then arteries bifurcate into small arterioles that convert into the capillaries, from where there is a exchange of the blood in the tissue, and then the capillaries converted into the venules, and venules collected blood and drain into the veins. And so this is the complete system: arteries, capillaries, and veins. So if anyhow any arteries, any veins, or any capillaries is ruptured, so this circulatory fluid, the blood, comes out and become visible. So that is called the hemorrhage. So there is so many classifications. One is the internal hemorrhage and external hemorrhage. Internal hemorrhage, also called the concealed hemorrhage. Concealed hemorrhage means when bleeding is not a visible outside from the body, it is inside body. Any abdominal any cavity inside the body, person is losing blood from the circulatory system, but it is not visible outside. That is internal bleeding. External bleeding, when it is somehow the skin is injured and the visible bleeding is outside, that is the external bleeding. What may be the cause of the bleeding? So most common cause of the bleeding is the injury. That may be the traumatic injury or the surgical injury, or maybe some underlying medical conditions. The person has the coagulopathies, so that person also the capillary is ruptured, and patient may that coagulation is not proper, so that is also condition, and uh, both condition may be also present combinedly. So traumatic injury or medical conditions, or the combination of both things. A person having the coagulopathy, defective coagulation, and that at the same time patient may get trauma. So that in that patient the bleeding also may be there. The type of the bleeding on the basis of their appearance. The primary, second reactionary, and secondary. Primary bleeding, that bleeding occurs at the time of injury. A person is getting injury, at the trauma, tissue is injured, and the bleeding is starts. That is called the primary injury. Reactionary injury is usually that occurs after the 24 hours of the injury. This is usually occurs in the surgical patients, due to the dislodge of the clot, or due to the slip of the ligature. Suppose you have done a case, you have done a surgery, and in the process of surgery you have just ligate one vessels, and after that 24 hours, or in the process of that recovery, when the patient is recovered from the anesthesia, and patient's blood pressure is again become rises, or initially patient was in shock and hypotension, when patient is getting resuscitation and patient is again gaining the blood pressure. So that due to the increase in the pressure, that may cause the slip in the ligature, or that may cause the slip of the clot from that, which was initially the bleeding was controlled by that clot. So when this clot is slipped, or the ligature is slipped, due to within 24 hours, due to the in the recovery of, in the process of the recovery, that bleeding is called the reactionary hemorrhage. Secondary hemorrhage is called when the patient having injury, and the patient having the hemorrhage after 1 week. Usually in the post-surgical cases, if a patient getting infection, so that infection when slough out that arterial walls or the veins, that arteries or the veins are get slough out with the due to that infection. So due to that, when the bleeding occurs, that is called the secondary bleeding. Usually secondary bleeding, just before the secondary bleeding, some kind of the is oozing always there. Means a patient maybe has some stains of the blood on the clots, on the cloth, so that after the 7 days of that surgery, or the 7 days of that trauma, so that and followed by the severe bleeding. So that these are three type of the bleedings. Primary means at the time of injury, reactionary within 24 hours or after 24 hours, and secondary after the 1 week. On the basis of the source, arterial bleeding, venous bleeding, and capillary bleeding. So arterial bleeding is very specific. Uh, if a person getting injured and the blood is coming from the wound in the form of the sprouts, and with every heartbeat, the sprout comes out, and the flow is pulsating in nature, bright red color blood, that means any artery is injured, and this is the arterial bleeding. Venous bleeding, usually there is when the vein is, because the veins has not very much pressure, the pressure is less, and the continuous flow is there, and the blood is usually little dark in colored, it means that is the venous bleeding. When the blood that flow is that in place of the slow flow, we can say the oozing is there. Means in the when capillaries are injured, then the bleeding is not exactly, but it is called the oozing. Means that blood is coming from out from the tissue in the form of the drops. It means the arteries are injured. A sorry, it means the capillaries are injured. So here the blood flow is very slow. That capillaries bleeding can be easily controlled by the only pressure. But if arteries or veins are injured, then we have to do the surgical repair to correct, to stop that bleeding. Hypovolemic hemorrhagic shock, we already had discussed in the shock, the different kind of the shock. The one of the most important and most common type of shock is the hypovolemic shock. In the hypovolemic, most common is the hemorrhagic shock. So if the patient is the patient has the arterial or the venous bleeding, and if it's not secured timely, then patient will land into the hemorrhagic hypovolemic shock surely. In the capillaries bleeding, the chance of patient getting the shock is very less, but in the arterial and venous bleeding, patient will go into the shock if you are not controlling the bleedings. Then classification of the hemorrhage, there are four class 1, class 2, class 3, and class 4. We already had discussed in the hypovolemic shock that when the person has lose the blood up to 15% of the total volume, then means that is the compensatory stage, the compensatory shock, and there is no vital signs are there. Only patient is getting little sweating in the periphery and cool and calm periphery, nothing else, no features may be there, and the vital signs are usually stable, heart rate, blood pressure have no change, and usually the fluid resuscitation is not necessary. You can just control the bleeding, and the patient will be fine. When the blood loss is more than 15% to up to 30%, then patient is in the mild shock. So in the case of the mild shock, the heart rate, the tachycardia is there, and the that pulse pressure is increased means the difference, the narrowing between systolic and diastolic blood pressure, that is the pulse pressure. So pulse pressure is reduces, and in this case the body is trying to compensate by taking the blood circulation from the non-essential part to the essential part, and that's why this periphery vasoconstriction are there, and the peripheral skin become pale and cool. These patients require the resuscitations with the IV fluids. Usually blood transfusion is not required, but first the thing that we have to do, first control the hemorrhage. Along with the hemorrhage control, resuscitation with the IV fluids can save the life of the patient. The class third, when the patient has lose more than 30%, up to 30% of the volume, and now the patient is in the moderate shock, so the heart rate is increased, now the blood pressure is start falling. Patient may have patient may have some anxiety, and in this case aggressive fluid resuscitations along with blood transfusions is necessary to save the life of the patient. In class 4 hemorrhage, one patient has lose more than 40% of the circulated volume, and here the body's limit of the compensation is exhausted, and you must control the bleeding, and active blood transfusion may be required along with the aggressive resuscitations to prevent death. You can see in the pictures class 1, class 2, class 3. If blood loss is more than up to 75 ml, here 75 to 1500 ml, 1500 to 200, 1500 to 2000 ml, and more than 2000. So here heart rate is below 100. Here heart rate increase more than 100, more than 120, more than 120. Systolic blood pressure usually in the class 1, no changes. Systolic and diastolic. Respiratory is usually normal. Urine output is very important and it is usually normal, but it is start decreasing in the class 2nd, class 3rd, and class 4th. The patient will be NUD. Extreme, it is usually just pale in color, and is in class 1 it is normal because body is compensating. In the class 2nd, the body, the skin become pale in color and cold. Mental status in class 1, patient is alert. In class 2nd, patient may be feel some anxious, and in class 3rd and 4th, patient may become drowsy as well as confused and comatose. The WHO has the classification of that different grading of that bleeding. Grade 0, no bleeding. Grade 1, the petechial bleeding means the blood is just a capillary bleeding, you can say, and concealed capillary bleeding where only the red spot is over the skin. Grade 2, the mild blood loss is there, that is clinically insignificant, that is below 15%. Class 3, the gross loss, that means mild to moderate where the blood transfusion is required. And class 4, grade 4 bleeding where there is severe blood loss, and that associated retinal and cerebral hemorrhage, and that is also, that is always fatal. Way means this condition are always fatal if patient have a retinal or cerebral hemorrhage. That should be very aggressive management should be there, otherwise patient will lose the life. Now the measurement of the blood loss, how we should measurement. So there is no exact method to means there is no method to measure the exact amount of the blood lost, but there are few methods by which we can just have an idea that approx how much the patient has the blood loss, because we have to give the uh, during the process of the resuscitation we have to give fluids more than the we have the loss, otherwise we cannot compensate that shock condition, we cannot treat that patient. So weighing of the swab during that surgical procedure, if you are counting the swab, and after the count, just before and after, if you weight that swab used in the surgical procedure before and after, so what are the difference between before and after, that will be the amount of the bleeding. So difference of the 1 gram, exact 1 gram of the uh, swab difference, it may be taken as the 1 ml of the blood. Understand? Suppose you have the swabs before surgery, that 200-gram swabs, and after surgery, if you weight that, they become 300 gram. It means the 100 ml blood has been lost in the surgical procedure. So that we have to keep in mind. In the some closed fracture, just like in the tibia fracture, humerus fracture, or the this tibia radius, and the large, just like femur, humerus, and so these fracture, we have just an approximate idea. In the tibia fracture, patient may lose to 1000 to 1500 ml blood, and in larger bones, if the fracture, then the patient may have lost uh, up to 1000 to 2000 ml. So we have to keep in mind during the resuscitations how much blood we should give, because the patient is how much patient has lost. To compensate that, we have to give little more than, because along with only bleeding, patient have fluid loss with their respirations, with their sweating, and some exudations. So that's why we have to give little more than we have calculated. Measurements of the blood clot, usually the clot of the size of the clenched fist. The size of the clot of the clenched fist is have approximate 500 ml of the blood. So if the blood is collected, that whatever the bleeding is there, and you have collected in somewhere, and you have just an idea that if it is size of the blood clot is approximate to the clenched fist, it means it is more than 500 ml has been lost. And along with the hemoglobin measurement is also a criteria, but in the emergency, hemoglobin maybe not necessary, but hemoglobin estimation is having important in case of the chronic hemorrhage. If patient having losing blood in the stool, and either hematemesis, either hematemesis or hemoptysis, then you can just approximate, have an idea that how much patient has lose the blood. So with this rise in the fall in the hemoglobin levels. Measurement of the central venous pressure is also important to know the how much circulated volume has been lost. So these are very important methods to just have an idea how much blood has been lost. So in the process of resuscitation, you have to keep in mind. Then one very important thing is there, one phenomena is there, that is the called the triad of death. In the bleeding, usually when the patient is having blood loss, so due to the blood loss, patient is going into the hypovolemia. Due to the hypovolemia, we know that at the cellular level, there is the acidosis is developed. So that acidosis disturb the coagulation process and develop the coagulopathy, and that coagulopathy further causes the hypothermia, and that hypothermia, if the body is losing blood, then body is going into the hypothermia, and the hypothermia further exceed the acidosis. Usually, the hypothermia sometime can be by these IV fluids also, because if the IV fluid is given out cold, that would cause the hypothermia, and the hypothermia further increase the coagulopathy, and the coagulopathy further is. So this is a cycle. So you never want to your patient go into this cycle of the this hypothermia, coagulopathy, and acidosis. That is called the triad of death. That is very important. Your patient must not land into the triad of death. So that's why you have to treat very carefully. If you found a patient of the bleeding, first try to control the bleeding, and at the same time you have to resuscitate. Then keep in mind your fluid must not be cold, because if your given fluid is cold, that will increase the hypothermia, and that will cause the coagulopathy. So further it causes the bleeding and the acidosis. So this is the very important things that we should keep in mind always, that your patient must not land into the triad of death. So to avoid this, give the warm fluid, and as well as early as possible close the stop the bleeding, and give the proper resuscitation so you can control the acidosis. And you may give some fluid, some medication to control the coagulation process, to control the coagulopathies, to correct the coagulopathy. Suppose the patient has less platelet counts, so you can give some platelets, so that can improve the coagulation process and stop the cycles. So this is very important, the triad of death in context to the bleeding. Management, how we should management. First thing to in the management is first to identify the hemorrhage. It is either it's concealed or uh, revealed. What kind of the hemorrhage there? What is the then start immediate resuscitations. How you identify the hemorrhage? Suppose if any patient getting any kind of a trauma, and after the trauma patient is continuously is landing into the shock, means patient has continuously this general condition is deteriorated, his pulse rate is rising, blood pressure is falling, his urine output is falling, then you must consider it as the concealed hemorrhage. If you cannot found hemorrhage on external, then you must take it as concealed hemorrhage and start treating like that. So early identification of the hemorrhagic shock is very important. Then next your step should be the resuscitations. Resuscitation means you just maintain the airway, breathing, and then circulation. You have to give the fluid, IV fluid. You must give the correct fluid and the correct situations and correct amount. Then identify the site. When you give the proper resuscitation, then you will get enough time to do further tests to find out what are the exact site. In the case of the concealed hemorrhage, that suppose in the abdominal bleeding is there, patient is getting blunt trauma in abdomen, then which organ is bleeding? uh, there is so many organs. The spleen may be ruptured, the peptic ulcer may be, perforation may be there, the liver may be ruptured. So what which site is the site of to know the exact site of the hemorrhage, you must resuscitate the patient first, and in the meantime you get some investigation to exact size, and then once you know the exact site, then you have to control the bleeding, either operative method or the medical method, whatever is necessary and whatever is possible. We already had discussed this resuscitation. First you have to try to control the bleeding. If bleeding is external, then by the only direct pressure you can manage, and you can control the bleeding for few times, and till then you can start the resuscitation process by the large bore IV access. And in the meantime you have to send the blood for the cross matching in the future if you blood transfusion is required, so that you have to prepare, you have to know the the blood group of the patients, and you have to arrange the blood, and just close monitoring is very essential. So in the process of the controlling bleeding, control bleeding, there is few things is very important. First thing, patient must be in the absolute rest conditions. Means if patient is continuously moving, so that may be causes the further dislodge of the clot and the further slipping of the ligature, so that may cause the further bleeding. So patient must be absolute rest. If patient having severe pain, then patient must be receive a good quality analgesic drugs. uh, Morphine is very good, but always avoid in case of the head injury. And a patient, in the meantime, patient should be transferred to the hospital where surgery is accessible to control the hemorrhage. So absolute rest. Then you have to move the patient towards the hospitals. And initially, you must avoid all the unnecessary investigations. First, start the resuscitation of the patient and try to control the hemorrhage with medicine or the surgery. That depends on the conditions. Attention should be paid to correct the coagulopathy with blood component therapy to add surgical hemorrhage control. Understand means if patient is losing blood, then you just keep in mind, if patient is losing blood, then whatever your fluid is given, you have to start the correct the coagulopathy, because if coagulopathy is there, then your patient may land into that ride of the death. So if patient is severely injured, so in the initial conditions you have to do just a damage control surgery. Damage control surgery is nothing, just to just resuscitate, means to stop the bleeding and to stop the further damage. The definite repair can be done after few days when the patient is settled and patient is out of danger. So initially, the damage control surgery may be required to save the life of the patient initially, and later you can do the surgical definitive repair. Suppose a patient having this uh, that femur fracture. So initially, the damage control surgery is there to just give the tractions and to control the hemorrhage. Later on, you can fix this hemorrhage with the uh, plates and the rods, and or it's whatever they require. So that's why our aim of the surgery should be to control the bleeding, to control the sepsis, and to protect further injury. Nothing else. Just wait and watch. Once your patient is stable, then you can later on you can do the definitive repair, surgical repair. So that's all for that hemorrhage control.